they got some other videos. We're gonna look at them. Right? Alright. I didn't see these. So, tis what it is. Let's take a look. This is Last of Us Part 2. We're gonna take a look at these other videos. We looked at the other ones. Or the first one. Right? This is inside the story. And now you know the rest of the story. This is Paul Harvey saying good day.
For The Last of Us Part 2, we're hoping to create a story that makes a commentary about the cycle of violence and how acts can beget other acts and show all the different aspects that could come out of it. Not necessarily good or bad, just the different consequences of one's actions.
Okay.
I'm gonna find.
Is it gonna be biased or is it?
I'm gonna kill every last one of them.
Oh, she's so sweet. You're so sweet, Ellie. Oh my God. So pretty.
I've heard a lot of people say, why make a sequel to The Last of Us? I didn't even hear the full pitch of the game, but just like the outline of what Neil was wanting to do with this game, I realized, oh, this is something we have to make. This, this isn't even an option.
Sony didn't give you a choice.
What we want to do here.
There's always the fear that, when you made something great, and you're gonna go back to it, you're gonna mess it up. You're gonna mess what made it so special. The test for us was like, can we come up with a story that could, one, stand on its own and be meaningful and have weight, the same kind of feeling we had when we came up on the story for the first one. But also now, because it's part 2, it has to be additive. It has to take the first one into consideration, that if you played both, then you get like a bigger narrative.
The thing that Neil really cared about, that the studio really cared about, is honoring Ellie and Joel specifically, and their journey as characters. What is the honest next steps that they would take? What are the truest moves that we could see them do?
The Last of Us 2 expands on the first game, both in the relationship between Ellie and Joel, the relationships that we see Ellie having, and just the greater world.
Now, hang tight. We're going to get to the rest of it. If they talk about The Last of Us Part 1 and build upon Joel and Ellie and whatnot, what's the realest action that they could take? Well, they could get killed. They could get killed, right? I would say that's the realest action that can be taken. Now, again, comes down to this controversy, right? If Joel and Ellie get killed, people gonna be mad? Like, not every movie or game or, song is gonna end how you want it to. That's like how people got all upset about the Game of Thrones thing, right? It didn't end how I wanted it to. Well, I mean, it's what does that matter? You are one person. One person. And here's another thing. Say they talk about remaking the Game of Thrones ending. If they did remake it, it ain't gonna take back the first one. It ain't gonna take it back, man. It is not gonna undo that butthurt. That butthurt is forever. Forever. Your bottom is just gonna be aching and sore forever, regardless if they redo it or not, right? And The Last of Us Part 2, if they end up getting killed, well, of course, they live in a post-apocalyptic society, you know what I mean? I mean, Jesus, they got people and zombies and dogs and, all sorts of things, right? Nature, they could get struck by lightning. Think about that. They could get struck by lightning and die. And these things happen. Oh, but how could that happen to Ellie and Joel? It doesn't matter. It happened, brother. One guy got struck by lightning like 14 or 21 times. And then after he died, an additional like 5 times. I don't know why it happened, but it happened. Nobody tell you. Move along. This is the way that they wanted to end the story. Right? Same thing with the Game of Thrones. Move along. Move along. It's the way they wanted to end the story. It's like, geez. All right, let's check it out. Now again, whatever happens in the game, regardless of what happens, if it's good, it's good. But if it's bad, I don't care. I don't care what sort of, signals it's putting out. I don't care what kind of, message is trying to push. If it's bad, it's bad. Right? You can't have it one way and not the other. You can't tell the fans, you can't be pissy if the director wanted to end it this way. But then again, if he ends it the way that he wanted to, and it's bad, then it's bad. Tis what it is. Can't have it both ways. We gotta practice some sort of logical consistency here. Let's finish this. Let's see what's going on. Look at this man here. Asian man. Good looking.
World that we're in, and we see more of it.
It's a genre story about
she's run down, ain't
this
she?
infection that turns people into these crazy monster-like humanoids. The core of it is about these really intimate, intense relationships.
Yep. Druckmann needs to comb his hair, man.
At the start of the game, Ellie is 19. She is living in a safe, secure community.
We're coming in, 25 years after the outbreak. And you, as Ellie, live in Jackson, which is this kind of somewhat tranquil town in this really messed up reality.
She has real community now. She has people who love and care for her, willing to sacrifice for her. Joel is also very settled down.
He's now part of a town. He's no longer a smuggler. Actually, the town relies on this guy that is
game looked good though.
Capable
graphics wise,
and that's something these towns in this world need.
Dino, where are you?
And then Jackson.
That was some pretty rough gameplay just then, though.
Shaken by a violent event. It really changes Ellie's day-to-day life, and now just living is no longer enough. Like there's people that have wronged her, and she wants retribution. You as a player are going to want retribution for what these people have done. And then you go off on this journey that leads you to Seattle, where now you're like stuck in the city that has these warring factions, and they're both fighting over the spoils of Seattle, and you're stuck there in the middle looking for this very specific group that has wronged you. And that's the concept of the story. And then it takes you on all sorts of twists and turns in Naughty Dog fashion.
Twists and turns, yeah. I like twists and turns.
We've had a lot of philosophical arguments about some of the events and what happens in the game, and I think in this one might be more divisive than the first game in a very kind of exciting way that I think it raises those interesting philosophical questions and asks the players to interpret some of the material that's there and see where they stand on those questions.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. That sounds good. It's like Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson, he was talking about these really awful events and thinking about them in the perspective as though you were the bad guy, right? Like, for instance, Germany, you know what I'm talking about. The chance that if you were alive back then that you would have been on the good guy side, boy, it's highly doubtful. But what he was saying is to try and think about it as though you weren't on the good guy side, and the sort of conditions that would have to occur in order for that sort of situation to happen, and trying to understand it from that point of view, and also that, in order to end up in that position, in today's society, you would think that, I would never, please, but honestly, the sort of conditions that have to arise in order for you to end up in that situation, the bad guy side during that time, actually, it's not very much. People start threatening you and your family, especially threatening your family, your very way of life, right? I mean, most people would fall in line, but also knowing how easily that you could fall into that situation, it brings a lot of perspective on to the human condition, you know, what people are capable of, you know. And if what today is June 16th 2020, and if you know what's going on today, you know, nowadays, you know what I'm talking about. In order to fall into that sort of situation, to doing these sort of heinous things, right, it doesn't take very much. So I agree with him, you know. If it's gonna, now I don't know what the scenario is that he's talking about, but from what I'm hearing, he's gonna be pushing some pretty harsh choices on you, and some harsh scenarios, like for instance, spoiler for the game BioShock Infinite, right? At the end, there comes a point where you're in a room with a crib and there's a baby inside, and essentially, long story short, you have to end up handing this baby over to the bad guy, and there's no other choice in the game. Like, I sat in that room for like, dude, I don't even know, like 15-20 minutes trying. Like, if you wait long enough, something might happen. No, nothing happened. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning too, right? I pressed X on every part of the wall, every part of the crib door, tried to get out, you know, something. But no, that's a part of the game. It is the only option, right? And sometimes in life, you know, there is no second or third option. You gotta make the hard choice. So you gotta make the hard decision, right? And sometimes, you know, especially right now, it's not, you know, people would consider that to be harsh or callous or, you know, non-empathetic. But in the heat of the moment, or at the time, or within that time period or scenario or whatever, you know, those were your only options, right? Your only available options, the only options that you knew of, you know. And like he's saying here, you know, sometimes, you know, the hard decisions, they have to be made. And boy, when I had to do that, boy, man, it hurt me deep. Especially if you've played the game, what happens after that, boy, it hurt me deep. But man, the ending of that game was awesome. It was unbelievable. But yeah, I mean, it could be a good game. It could be a good game, you know, controversy aside, right? But yeah. Neil Druckmann, everybody. See you next time. I'm going to look at the next ones too. So if you want to see the next ones, you know, go to the next video. Oh, like, subscribe, comment below. What do you think of the whole scenario? Would you ever end up as the bad guy, right? If not, right? Well, you just got life figured out, don't you? You got life figured out. Tell us how we're all doing it wrong, right? Because you just know better. But, you know, I'm sure somebody will. Down in the comments below.